Good afternoon. The first item of business this afternoon is portfolio questions. The first portfolio is the Deputy First Minister Responsibilities, Economy and Gaelic. I invite any members, remind members wishing to ask a supplementary to press the request to speak buttons during the relevant question. Just to advise the Chamber, we are incredibly in tight for time across the afternoon, so I would appreciate more than ever succinct questions and indeed succinct answers. And I call question number 1, Kevin Stewart.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the British Chambers of Commerce Quarterly Economic Survey, which has suggested that business confidence has fallen to its lowest level for 2 years, including in Scotland, because of issues such as the UK Government's decision to raise employers' national insurance contributions.
Minister Richard Lockhead.
We recognise that conditions for businesses remain challenging, and it's regrettable that the Chancellor's policy changes will disadvantage and place additional pressures on Scottish businesses. The majority of taxation powers, of course, including over national insurance contributions, remain reserved to the UK Government. Through the Scottish Budget, we are supporting those businesses who sustain our communities and will help to create the wider economic conditions that will allow Scotland's businesses to grow. The budget provides £221 million for our enterprise agencies, £200 million for the Scottish National Investment Bank to invest in Scotland, and £15 million to help start-ups to grow, to give some examples.
Kevin Stewart.
Presiding Officer, the increase in employers' national insurance contributions is a tax on jobs, and along with other measures in the UK budget, that's led to real concerns in the business community and in the markets. Has the Scottish Government relayed its concerns to the UK Government about their misguided tax on jobs, and what can the Minister and the Scottish Government do within the limited powers of devolution to instil confidence and create stability for businesses in Scotland?
Minister.
Thank you. Well, Kevin Stewart raises a very important issue because clearly the national insurance contributions increase has gone down like a bucket of sick with the Scottish business community, and there's a lot of concern. And some of the illustrations of the increase for individual businesses I've heard of are pretty eye-watering, going to be very difficult for businesses to cope with. The Scottish Government has made representations to the UK Government about this and will continue to do so. Indeed, a letter went off just in the last few days, again reiterating our concerns. Our concerns. In the meantime, we urge, of course, Parliament to pass the draft budget because, as I illustrated in my initial answer, there's a number of measures in there that we believe will support Scottish business to get through this.
And a couple of brief supplementaries. First, Michael Mara.
The record budget settlement for Scotland, £5.2 billion coming to this government. We hear a lot about what that's spent on. Does the Minister not recognise that the money actually has to be raised? Yes. So what would his solution to the problem about how you raise the money that needs to be spent?
Minister.
I think the member would be better off making representations to his bosses in London over the impact of the budget on the Scottish economy and the Scottish business community in particular. Because the irony is that the member often in this chamber says he stands up for creating Scottish jobs, but the way in which it's been interpreted, the national insurance contribution in Scotland increase, is that businesses are saying they'll have to lay off people. This is a jobs tax, and it's going to be very difficult to cope with. It's going to hit profits and hit jobs as well, and I'd urge him to make representations to the UK Chancellor about this.
Michael Matheson.
The Minister will be aware of the real-life implications that this increase in national insurance contributions has got for employers. Alexander Dennis is based in my constituency, went through a redundancy programme towards the end of last year, and in December last year announced a further redundancy programme with the primary reason for a second batch of redundancies due to the national employers' contribution increase. This is starting to have a real-life impact on people's jobs. Can I ask the Minister, will you ensure us that the Scottish Government and its agencies will continue to work with critical employers like Alexander Dennis's to continue to support them through this challenging economic environment?
Minister. Well, I thank you, Michael Matheson, for raising a real-life illustration of the impact these policies from the UK Government are having on businesses in Scotland. And I give him an assurance we will continue to make the strongest representations to the UK Government. And, of course, this is yet another illustration, and I'm sorry to hear about the example in Mr Matheson's constituency, of the short-sightedness of the UK Government's policy and some of the measures in their budget.
Question 2, Annabel Ewing.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the performance of enterprise agencies in supporting business growth and inward investment.
Deputy First Minister.
Well, in the last financial year, Scottish Enterprise secured or safeguarded more than 16,700 jobs. They helped businesses unlock £1.9 billion of planned capital investment spend and £449 million of planned innovation spend. Highlands and Islands Enterprise supported 1,248 jobs and helped businesses to unlock £412.8 million of capital investment, and the South of Scotland Enterprise supported 1,706 jobs across its region, all whilst Scotland maintained its position as a top-performing place in the UK for FDI projects outside of London for the 9th year in a row.
Annabel Ewing.
I thank the Deputy First Minister for her answer, and it is very encouraging indeed to note the recent successes of Scottish enterprise in supporting indigenous business growth for larger companies, and indeed the strong performance continuing as regards foreign direct investment. However, I wonder if the Deputy First Minister has reflected on what more could be done to help smaller businesses looking to scale up, and whether or not the Scottish Government's current approach is the best fit in that regard.
Deputy First Minister.
Well, the member makes a really important point, because small and medium-sized businesses are the backbone of the Scottish economy, and so often they are anchors in their local economies, and I know that will be the case in Annabel Ewing's own constituency. The enterprise agencies are not the only source of support for businesses, so businesses of all sizes and types can access support from a wide range of public sector organisations. Some of those will be Business Gateway, but there are more listed in the Find Business Support part of the website. And I'm very happy to pick up with Annabel Ewing about any specific businesses that are struggling to get support, which we could come in and help.
Thank you. There is a lot of interest. I'll try and get as many supplementaries as I can, but they will need to be brief as will the responses. Murdo Fraser.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Scottish Government's budget for the coming financial year delivers a real terms cut in the funding of enterprise networks compared to the last financial year. And indeed, if we look over the last decade, the funding for the enterprise networks is a fraction of what it was a decade ago. So if these enterprise networks are, as the Cabinet Secretary says, so important, how does continually cutting their budget help grow the economy?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, that would be a good question for the Conservatives about the overall size of their budget settlement to the Scottish Government. But I have to pick up Murdo Fraser on a number of points. And we obviously had these exchanges in committee as well as in writing, that adjustments for IFRS 16 have to be taken into account in terms of comparing the two budgets. And the bottom line is that we've increased Scottish Enterprise total budget by 5%. We've maintained Highlands and Islands Enterprise resource budget and increased its capital budget by 9%, and we've maintained South of Scotland Enterprise resource budget and increased its capital budget by 8%. And it's that capital budget that's distributable and which is of most interest to businesses.
Daniel Johnson.
The Minister referenced her contributions at Economy Committee last week, and just to quote her, she said that I want distributable funding in the economy portfolio. I do not want to create public service jobs. And she went on to say that the fact is that public sector organisations might need to change and adapt. She seemed to be very much suggesting that the focus configuration of the enterprise agencies needed to change. Is that an area of work that the Scottish Government has undertaken? And could she outline what steps she's taking to reform the enterprise agencies?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, on that very point, the enterprise agencies, I would say, have been at the front of the queue to adapt and to make sure that their focus is far more targeted and far more streamlined. So the performance figures I outlined in my first answer to Annabel Ewing, in terms of the number of jobs safeguarded or protected and the number of capital that is able to be invested as a result of their work, hasn't happened by chance. Because Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands Enterprise and South Scotland Enterprise have been so targeted and focused on what they are trying to do, they have excelled, and I would say they have never been in a stronger position. So I absolutely stand by that point, that from a business support perspective, business cares about what is coming to them in support, not how many jobs we are creating in the public sector.
And very briefly, Willie Rennie.
Liberty Steel, owned by Sanjeev Gupta, has failed to submit audited accounts for the last 4 years. In her discussions with Scottish Enterprise, is she aware as to whether that company has breached the loan agreement with the Scottish Government?
As briefly as possible.
I'm very happy to ask one of my colleagues to pick up, because I'm entirely and completely accurately recused from this issue because of the constituency interests that I hold in it. So I will ask colleagues to pick up with you.
Thank you, and apologies though I couldn't call. Question 3, Stephen Kerr.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the plans for the contract for Contact Scotland BSL, which provides free services to BSL users.
Deputy First Minister.
So the Scottish Government wrote to the supplier of Contact Scotland BSL on the 4th of December, notifying that its contract would come to an end on the 31st of March 2025 in accordance with its terms. In December, the First Minister reiterated our commitment to re-tender for a free service, and in doing so that there should be no break in service for users of Contact Scotland BSL. And I am engaging, and officials are engaging, with the deaf and deafblind communities in Scotland to learn from them what they want from a service so that it best meets their needs.
Stephen Kerr.
Well, I'm grateful to the Deputy First Minister for her answer, and to the First Minister for the way he doubled down on the answer he gave me at FMQs last month, because we all know that Contact Scotland BSL is a vital lifeline service for BSL users. However, the answer isn't, in my opinion, entirely complete, because in the letter that was issued to the supplier, it said very clearly that it was the intention of the government, signed off by ministers, to terminate Contact Scotland BSL as a service. And it's very clear in the letter that is the case. So can I ask the Deputy First Minister, why did ministers think it was a good idea to terminate the service completely in the first place? And why go through all of this stramash to cause such unnecessary...
Deputy First Minister.
Well, in terms of the contract, I know that Stephen Kerr will have an interest in this, but there are legal restrictions in terms of extending the contract again, because it has already been extended previously. But my focus right now is to engage with BSL users to make sure that the service that we provides them with what they need. So it's my impression that, based on the figures, that there are far more BSL users than the numbers who are currently using the service. So I want a new service to go beyond the current provision, to embed advances in technology that are being used by BSL users in their daily lives, and we need to test the market to identify the best services available for BSL users to utilise. But the points I made in terms of a free service will continue.
Question 4, Maurice Gold.
To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to transform participation rates for women in entrepreneurship.
Deputy First Minister.
We are allocating record levels of funding to support women's enterprise, with £2.6 million allocated in the current financial year and £4 million next year, which I'm very excited about. We're taking forward all the recommendations in Anna Stewart's Pathways report, working to address the causes of female under-participation in entrepreneurship in Scotland, and I'm leading the government's work in that area to support more women to start, grow and scale their businesses.
Maurice Golden.
Thank the Deputy First Minister for that answer, and I commend Anna Stewart and Mark Logan for their work on the Pathways report, and to Kate Forbes for commissioning it. The recommendations cover infrastructure, entrepreneurial access, investment and education, and I'm keen that Parliament has the opportunity to scrutinise action and debate those issues. So will the Deputy First Minister agree to a statement and/or debate on progress to achieving these recommendations?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I think that parliamentary scrutiny is critical in this area, because over and above the financial support that we can provide, there needs to be a cultural shift as well. And it's not just in the public sector, but also private sector funding that is key. There is a lot of activity going on in this area, and I think it would be absolutely brilliant if we could raise the profile of it all in terms of what some of the banks are doing alongside what we are doing, and elevate the issues that Anna Stewart's report highlights.
And brief supplementary, Claire Haughey.
My constituent Bailey Adeoti is the founder and managing director of the social enterprise Decamai Limited, and the organisation recently published a report that was funded by the Scottish Government's Ecosystem Fund, which looked at key barriers preventing ethnic minority social entrepreneurs, including women, from accessing investment. Can the Deputy First Minister advise what consideration the Scottish Government has given to the report's recommendations?
Briefly as possible.
Well, we welcome the Access 2024 report and its recommendations, and I know the Minister for Employment met with Decamai last year to discuss the report. The Social Enterprise Action Plan, published in November, makes clear our commitment to support a review of current social enterprise funding and investment mechanisms, and the Action Plan is clear that this should build on the work of Decamai's report.
Question 5, Bob Doris.
To ask the Scottish Government what steps it is taking to encourage and maximise the levels of global capital investment in Scotland to benefit the economy and communities.
Deputy First Minister.
Well, we are working as part of a programme to attract capital investment at scale. We're focusing on 3 priority areas: net zero, housing and public economic infrastructure. We're working with public and private partners. We're developing a national project pipeline of investment opportunities, and we're ensuring that policy and funding programmes maximise the opportunities to crowd in private sector investment.
Doris.
I'm pleased to hear the Deputy First Minister talk about private investment, because leveraging private sector investment will be vital to grow Scotland's green economy and build on the success of recent significant projects such as the major Coburn development, which will boost economic growth and save around 1.6 million tonnes of CO2 emissions over 35 years. Can the Deputy First Minister advise how the draft Scottish budget can support leveraging more such investment going forward?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, our budget is aligned to that programme, and, for example, the tripling of the funding that we've made available for the supply chain on offshore wind makes clear that we want to attract that private investment in the supply chain, which will be of benefit to so many of Scotland's communities. So that is a big focus, and we are making clear through our budget and through other means that Scotland is open for business, that we believe in the importance of attracting private investment, and we want to ensure that the opportunities are realised for all of Scotland.
Question 6, Ash Regan.
To ask the Scottish Government what strategy it plans to implement to grow the Scottish economy at a level that is in line with countries with similarly sized populations such as Norway.
First Minister.
Well, we are taking action to boost economic growth, including rolling out our internationally recognised TechScaler programme for high-growth start-ups, £500 million commitment to leverage private investment in offshore wind, connecting tens of thousands of households and businesses to gigabit-capable broadband. And the progress that we've seen lays the foundations for Scotland's long-term success. As Ash Regan will know and hopefully agree with, we are tied to the UK Government's economic model right now, and seeing some of the consequences of that even in the most recent days. And independence does allow us to take economic powers into our own hands and build a greater economic equality and well-being.
Ash Regan.
Economic stability and resource security are, of course, pressing priorities in a world of increasing volatility. And I believe that Scotland is crying out for an industrial strategy that complements the need for an inward investment and ensures that profit from Scotland's resources meaningfully benefits inwards, not simply flows then straight outwards, underpinned by a North Star of serious commitment to nurturing success at all levels of Scottish business. The Government must ensure economic benefits flow throughout Scotland to support world-class infrastructure, public services and community wellbeing. So will they now act like the independent nation we want to be by committing fully to deliver a real plan of economic ambition for an independent Scotland?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, can I agree with the point that profit needs to benefit our communities and that we need to nurture success at every level? Just this morning I met with Wilkie, a Scottish organisation, a Scottish business with 160 years behind it, based in Kirriemuir, who are expanding, creating hundreds of new jobs, attracting investment of £50 million, and who are moving into the Michelin Innovation Park in Dundee. That will restore the number of jobs that were lost when the Michelin factory closed down almost 5 years ago. The point being that that is an example of a Scottish business that's been highly successful on an international stage, is now growing and developing, putting us on the map and restoring jobs that have been lost.
And brief supplementary, Douglas Ross.
This question is about growing the economy, and the Deputy First Minister will be aware of the concerns for Elgin's economy with the imminent closure of the St Giles Centre. On Monday, I attended a meeting organised by Elgin Bid, which Richard Lockhead was also at, to discuss this issue. What can the Deputy First Minister do about this unprecedented and unacceptable closure, which could potentially see over 100 jobs lost and businesses given less than 2 weeks' notice to vacate?
First Minister.
Well, I understand and share Douglas Ross's concern, and this is an issue that Richard Lockhead has also raised on a number of occasions with ministers. The Minister for Employment and Investment met with the member from Murray last night to discuss these concerns, and we are being kept informed by the efforts of the Council. But notwithstanding, I fully understand how much of a concern it is, and would be very happy to progress any actions that would reduce and alleviate the potential impact on the local community and businesses, and to find a solution.
Richard, question 7, Richard Leonard.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. And can I remind members of my register of trade union interests to ask the Scottish Government what recent discussions the Economy Secretary has had with ministerial colleagues regarding the potential impact on the Scottish economy of the closure of the Grangemouth oil refinery.
Deputy First Minister.
Well, in full recognition of the far-reaching impact that the refinery's closure will have, we have engaged extensively across portfolios and with stakeholders to understand not only the impact that the refinery's closure will have, because we appreciate that that will be profound, but also what can be done in order to alleviate that impact. In terms of the stakeholders we've engaged with Unite, the UK Government, Petro-Ineos, regarding the site's future. And at the moment, all of our focus is trying to reduce the impact and to find a solution, a long-term solution for the site.
Richard Leonard.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? A report on sustainable aviation fuel and other biofuels production was handed to the First Minister by the General Secretary of Unite, Sharon Graham, back in November. A 2023 report commissioned by Scottish Enterprise concluded that Grangemouth was key to Scotland's transition to sustainable aviation fuel. It's much more cost-effective to convert an existing refinery to sustainable fuel than to build a new plant from scratch, and Grangemouth has the customer networks, the support of the community and a skilled workforce to make this work. So will the Cabinet Secretary tell Parliament and those workers who are now weeks away from redundancy what the Government is doing to turn that plan into a reality?
First Minister.
Well, I know the member is joined by his MP colleague Brian Leishman in the Chamber today, I believe, in the House of Commons, also making that point. And it's critical. We've said that we are willing to work with the UK Government on this issue. He mentioned sustainable aviation fuel, which is one of a number of options that are being actively explored in terms of a future. Sustainable aviation fuel, it may be more of a medium to longer term, and what the Government needs to be clear on is what options we have in order to safeguard the site in the short term. And I can assure him that all parts of the Scottish public sector, from Scottish Enterprise through to the Scottish Government, are invested in finding a solution, and we are keen to see the UK Government work with us to find that short-term solution.
Brief supplementary, David Torrance.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal is designed to boost the region and create vital jobs. Can the Deputy First Minister say more about the plans for the funding package and how it will help grow the regional economy?
First Minister.
Well, I was very pleased to sign that growth deal in November, and we've committed £50 million to support the region to deliver the objectives that David Torrance has just set out. Obviously, that has been signed after the announcement about Grangemouth, and so there is support available as well in terms of the skills transition piece. But meanwhile, we continue to work on the future for the site.
Very brief supplementary, Stephen Kerr.
What discussions have ministers had with Ineos prior to the closure of the ethanol plant that's been announced? That's the loss of 80 jobs directly and 500 indirectly. What economic assessment has been made of the impact of that particular closure, which comes ahead of the closure of the refinery?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, there's been quite a lot of engagement with Ineos, and that engagement has spanned the last few years. So there is active conversations ongoing right now. We know that job losses are always going to have a detrimental impact on a local economy. In my conversations with Ineos, they obviously have a number of different businesses on that site, and so that creates some opportunities in terms of the jobs. But our big focus right now is more generally on the region. How do we create a long-term future for the skilled workers that work in the various different Ineos businesses?
And question 8, Jamie Green.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the comments made by the Auditor General for Scotland that, I quote, "the future of the Ferguson Marine Port Glasgow shipyard remains uncertain."
Deputy First Minister.
Well, I noted the Auditor-General's report and I expect the Ferguson Marine Board to carefully consider the points that the Auditor-General raises. We are committed to supporting Ferguson Marine reach a position where it can competitively bid for a range of projects and build a sustainable future. And we've been working with the board to explore the options to improve productivity, and the member will already know about our commitment to invest up to £14.2 million in improving productivity, subject to due diligence.
Jamie Green.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response? The Auditor-General's report was a very stark reality check about the future of the yard. The reality is that once the Glen Rosa has set sail from Greenock, the pipeline for the future of the yard at the moment, the long-term contractual pipeline, is absolutely zero. It's zilch. Without a pipeline of work, the yard cannot see a long-term future. So I guess I'm asking that beyond the contracts that we currently know of, what is the government doing to ensure that the yard does secure that much-needed future of contracts, given that the business plan was announced in July of last year? A long time has passed, yet we are yet to see any real progress in securing more business for the yard. What is the Cabinet Secretary's message to the workers of this yard, given that it is a strategic national asset?
Deputy First Minister.
Well, can I, and hopefully Jamie Green will join me in this first message to the yard, because he mentioned the Glen Rosa. I think it would be fitting to acknowledge the fact that the Glen Sannox this week has been in service, and to make the comment that it was never the skills or the talent of the workforce that were ever in question, and they are to be commended for their diligent work in getting that boat to sail this week. In terms of the long-term future, I've been very clear, and I'm afraid I'm not going to deviate from this point, that Ferguson Marine's long-term future relies on it being able to competitively bid for work on the open market. Now, to do that, they have to be able to compete with other shipyards, and that is where the offer of investing in improving the productivity comes, because I see that as the means of enabling them to competitively bid. Now, there is some work available in the pipeline. The member will understand that I would not want to divulge that, because much of it is commercially sensitive in the chamber, but all eyes and all focus is on this issue.
I know we're over time. I'm going to squeeze in one supplementary. Stuart McMillan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Does the Deputy First Minister agree with me that the Scottish Government's £14.2 million investment into the yard in the proposed 25-26 budget provides an opportunity for the yard to actually attract new work from both public and also private sectors, because of the aspects you just spoke about with regards
to briefly as possible, Deputy First Minister.
Well, yes is the short answer, and the budget allocates the funds needed to deliver the Glen Rosa and to resource a range of initiatives to improve the productivity of the yard, provided that Parliament votes for it.
Thank you. That concludes portfolio questions on Deputy First Minister, Economy and Gaelic. We'll move on to the next portfolio, which is Finance and Local Government. Again, members wishing to ask a supplementary question invited to press the Request to Speak buttons during the relevant question. Question number 1, I call Emma Roddick.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it prioritised funding for affordable housing when drafting its budget for 2025-26.
Apologies, I saw the front bench already assembled, but I didn't realise they wanted to shift seats. But with that, I will call the Cabinet Secretary, Shona Robertson, on question number 1.
Thank you. The draft budget includes investment of £768 million for the Affordable Housing Supply Programme in 2025-26. This will help tackle the housing emergency while contributing towards our target of 110,000 affordable homes by 2032. This budget prioritised capital spending to eliminate child poverty, grasp the opportunities of net zero, boost economic growth and maintain high-quality public services and infrastructure. Therefore, delivering more affordable homes for families with children living below the poverty line was very much a priority.
Thank you, and apologies again, Cabinet Secretary.
That's all right.
Emma Roddick.
Thank you, Presiding Officer, and I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. As someone who's always stressed the importance of ensuring that sufficient funding is allocated to affordable housing, I strongly welcome the fact that total spending in the coming year is set to return to where it was 2 years ago. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me on the importance of MSPs, especially those who represent communities experiencing depopulation, backing the budget and unlocking this vital housing investment?
Cabinet Secretary.
Yes, we very much recognise that good quality affordable housing is essential to help retain and attract people to Scotland's rural communities. Since March 2016, we have delivered over 12,000 affordable homes in rural communities, and we know that even a small number of additional homes in rural and island communities can have a significant and generational impact. Our commitment to deliver 110,000 affordable homes, of which at least 70% will be for social rent and 10% will be in our rural and island communities, is supported by our Rural and Islands Housing Action Plan.
Well, the brief supplementaries first, Megan Gallagher.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I asked the Housing Minister yesterday about the Scottish Government's affordable homes target of 110,000 homes by 2032. 2032. To complete this target, there would need to be, on average, 10,700 homes built per year. But as it stands, only 21% of that overall target has been delivered. To build more houses, there needs to be confidence in the market and long-term planning. But over the last 3 years, the affordable budget has been committed, then cut and then restored. Does the Cabinet Secretary recognise that this damages market confidence? And why should investors have confidence that this government won't cut the budget again?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, let me start on a point of agreement with Megan Gallagher, and that is that confidence in the market in the longer term is important, which is why I want to post the spending review, UK Government spending review in June. Should our capital allocations show a sustained upwards trajectory, which is what we understood to be the case, then I want to give that longer-term certainty to the housing sector to be able to boost confidence and have that line of sight of investment. But of course, the £768 million for the Affordable Housing Supply Programme would not be there if we listened to Megan Gallagher's colleagues, who want to cut the budget by £1 billion. £1 billion of tax cuts would not just eradicate the £768 million for affordable housing, it would eradicate many other good things as well. So Megan Gallagher needs to not come here asking for more money when her party is wanting to cut £1 billion out of this budget.
Okay, let's listen to the questions and indeed the answers. Brief supplementary, Paul Sweeney.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Does the Cabinet Secretary agree that the financial model pioneered by Lar Housing Trust over the last decade shows great promise, using loan-based finance rather than the traditional grant-based financing model, and could significantly increase the capacity for the country to build affordable housing?
Cabinet Secretary.
Can I very much agree with Paul Sweeney on that point? I think Lar Housing Trust shows a very innovative way of delivering affordable housing. I've visited a number of their very innovative sites where they utilise sometimes buildings that have been derelict for some time and unpurposed, as well as new build sites. So I'm very keen to support that model and happy to work with Paul Sweeney and others in doing so.
Question 2, Marie McNair.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it plans to support East and West Dunbartonshire councils as part of the local government settlement for 25-26.
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, if Parliament works together to pass the 2025-26 budget, councils will receive their formula share of over £1 billion of additional funding for local government, the largest increase in recent times. That would deliver an increase of £22.9 million for East Dunbartonshire Council and an increase of £14.3 million for West Dunbartonshire Council compared to 2024-25. It's then, of course, for locally elected councillors to make decisions on how best to utilise the additional funding available and deliver services to their communities based on local needs and priorities.
Marie McNair.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for the answer. Despite increased funding from the Scottish Government to local authorities, does the Cabinet Secretary agree with me that Labour's PPP repayments and the national insurance hike are having a significant impact on councils' ability to balance their budgets?
Cabinet Secretary.
Oh, so I certainly agree that any additional employer national insurance costs that are not fully funded by the UK Government will deprive frontline services of vital funding to the detriment of local communities. I can confirm that the First Minister and COSLA President wrote jointly to the Chancellor on the 3rd of January, supported by a range of organisations. On the issue of PPP repayments, the Scottish Futures Trust continues to work with authorities to assist in making savings and improving performance across PFI and PPP contracts, ensuring contractual obligations are delivered, that contracts are affordable and provide best value for money for the taxpayer. But it is, of course, a legacy that we could have well done without from the previous Labour administration.
Question 3 is not lodged. Question 4, Liz Smith.
To ask the Scottish Government what its response is to the Auditor-General's November 2024 report, Fiscal Sustainability and Reform in Scotland, which states that, and I quote, "The Scottish Government has not been sufficiently transparent with the Scottish Parliament or the public about the current fiscal situation."
Minister Ivan McKee.
This Government has been crystal clear with Parliament and the public about the challenges and risks facing the public finances. Firstly, through the 2023 medium-term financial strategy and the 2023-24 budget, and then through the fiscal statement in September, and the 25-26 budget was very clear about the continued challenges facing the public finances. We will continue to be open about the actions required to ensure fiscal sustainability when the updated medium-term financial strategy and fiscal sustainability delivery plan are published later this year. This Government remains committed to improving our fiscal transparency, and we're actively considering Audit Scotland's recommendations in that regard.
Ms Smith.
In relation to the Scottish Fiscal Commission's most recent forecast about the projected increases in the size of Scotland's social security budget, I asked the Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice last Thursday at committee and the Cabinet Secretary for Finance yesterday at committee to explain where the money is coming to pay for these increased social security expenditures. All I get back is that these are increased investments with the social contract with the people of Scotland. So can I try again? Where is the money actually coming from to fund the increases in social security budgets for the next 2 years?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, this Government recognises the importance of supporting all of our citizens. The First Minister's primary objective, as outlined in his speech earlier this morning, in terms of eradicating child poverty, our commitment to investment in the people of Scotland through our social security Scotland delivery is a critical part of that, and this Government will continue to focus on making sure that we deliver financial stability, sustainability, and the work that we're taking forward will be articulated in our fiscal sustainability delivery plan. But rest assured, Scottish Government every single year for the last 17 years has balanced our books. We intend to continue to do that. We will meet our commitments to deliver for the people of Scotland, and will do so by making sure that the budget is fiscally sustainable, and we do indeed continue to balance that budget every year.
A couple of brief supplementaries. First, Michael Manna.
The report from Audit Scotland is the fifth in just 15 months, which calls on the Scottish Government to urgently deliver public sector reform and set the public finances on a sustainable footing. So we welcome the idea of a fiscal sustainability delivery plan, but can the Minister assure us that it won't just be talking about back office functions, and we talk about proper public service reform in Scotland?
Minister.
Well, I think we're very clear that, as he calls it, back office functions is a critical part of ensuring that we free up resources to the front line. And you'll know from the work that we've published in the interest of transparency that the cost of those back office functions across the public sector is around £5 billion. We'll continue to bear down on that on top of the hundreds of millions we've already saved through measures we've taken in that regard. And of course we will, alongside that, continue to focus on ensuring we shift resources to ensure that there's a continued and increasing focus on activities that drive prevention into the wider system, and I can rest assured that the work I'm taking forward on public service reform is addressing all of those matters, and will continue to communicate to the Parliament the progress we're making in that regard.
And briefly, Willie Rennie.
That Audit Scotland report was very critical about the failure to lead and invest in digital for the longer term. And that's certainly the view of James Blackwood, who is the artificial intelligence lead at NHS Forth Valley, who says that patients are missing out on advances with artificial intelligence. So why is the Government failing to lead in this important area?
Mr.
Well, the Government is very focused on that, and I had a call just this morning with our Digital Directorate to engage on the work that's been taken forward in Government and across the wider public sector to roll out digital solutions, and also to address how we make increasing use of artificial intelligence. Remember, we'll be well aware that that technology is moving very fast, but we are very focused on making sure that the Government and the wider public services avail themselves of the advantages to efficient public service delivery that digital technologies and AI can offer.
Question 5, Pam Gossel.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the state of local government finances.
Cabinet Secretary.
The Independent Accounts Commission confirmed that the Scottish Government provided a real terms funding increase to local government in this year, in 2023-24 and in 2022-23. The 2025-26 Scottish Budget will provide local government in Scotland with record funding of over £15 billion. And if opposition parties support the budget, then the local government settlement will increase by over £1 billion, a real-term increase of 4.7% compared to 2024-25.
Pam Gosal.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. A report from the Local Government Information Unit has shown that 7 in 10 councils believe they will be unable to pass a balanced budget within the next 5 years. Council Chief Execs from my region of the West of Scotland have also expressed concerns over the state of their council finances and indicated that they will have to take difficult decisions in the upcoming council budgets, such as increasing council tax. Therefore, does the Cabinet Secretary not recognise that 18 years of SNP mismanagement have left council finances in an absolute terrible state?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, the Independent Accounts Commission would disagree with Pam Gosal's assessment, because the Independent Accounts Commission showed that we provided a real terms funding increase to local government in this year, the previous year, 2023-24, and the year before that, 2022-23. Well, of course, the problem that Pam Gosal has is the same problem that Megan Gallagher has, in that coming to this chamber, apparently asking for more money for local government, not raised in the meetings by her finance spokesperson, I have to also add, is that the leader of her party in this place wants £1 billion less in the budget. So you can't have more money for local government, or indeed anything else for that matter, if your party is proposing £1 billion less in the budget because they want to provide unaffordable, uncosted tax cuts. So there is a problem here that Tory backbenchers have to address before they come here asking for more money.
Brief supplementary, Kenneth Gibson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Under the Tories between 2018 and 23, 7 English local authorities had to issue Section 114 notices of bankruptcy, including the largest, Birmingham. Not a single council in Scotland has gone bankrupt under this SNP government. Given the Tories' abysmal record in local government, does the Cabinet Secretary agree that they are the last people we should take lessons from?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, I agree with every word of that. A decade of Conservative Party austerity measures left public services with very little resilience, and the facts speak for themselves of what has happened with English local authorities. The Scottish Government had to take very difficult decisions to protect local services and ensure that communities across Scotland continue to receive the high-quality public frontline services. And although there were difficult decisions to make, as I have said in the previous answer to Pam Gosal, the Independent Accounts Commission confirmed that the Scottish Government provided a real terms funding increase to local government in the last 3 years. Those are the facts. Tory members might not like facts, but those are the facts.
And very briefly, Colette Stevenson.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can the Cabinet Secretary outline the real terms change in the budget available to councils for day-to-day spending across Scotland for 2025-26 and confirm whether South Lanarkshire Council will have more cash to spend on its identified local priorities based on the Scottish Government's draft budget?
Briefly as possible, Cabinet Secretary.
Well, as I've said earlier, if the budget is supported, then the local government settlement will increase by over £1 billion, a real-term increase of 4.7 compared to 24-25. For South Lanarkshire Council, that would deliver an increase of £63.2 million to support vital day-to-day services, or an additional 8.5% compared to the 2024-25 budget.
Question 6, Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government how its draft budget 2025-26 will support local authorities to better serve rural communities, such as those in Aberdeenshire and Angus Council areas in the North East Scotland region.
Cabinet Secretary.
In 2025-26, local authorities in the north east of Scotland will receive £1.79 billion as part of a record £15 billion settlement to fund local services and meet local needs. This equates to an extra £125.5 million, or an additional 7.5% compared to the funding provided in 2024-25.
Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. I've been contacted by Aberdeenshire constituents very concerned about the low per capita funding the Council receives. Maintenance of transport and connectivity, including gritting roads and pavements, and preserving the authority's more than 1,100 bridges is vital for many rural communities. And the Shire has an ageing population, 28% projected increase in those over 65 by 2029. These people will require additional funding for the services they should be able to rely on. Given the well-evidenced nature of rural inequality, can the Cabinet Secretary outline any plans to review the funding formula and specify what is being done to ensure rural communities are not cut off, further marginalised or face worsening inequality?
Cabinet Secretary.
First of all, can I say to Maggie Chapman that the funding formula, of course, is agreed with COSLA and the 32 organisations that compose local government, and therein lies the rather big challenge with changes to any funding formula. What I would say, though, is that the funding floor provides an opportunity to address and recognise changes to census data, for example, and that's why I took the decision to amend the funding floor for 2025-26 in recognition of that. In terms of Aberdeenshire Council itself, they will receive in 2025-26 £615.3 million to fund local services, an extra £42.5 million, which is an additional 7.4% compared to 24-25. All councils are also getting additional capital funding. I am always keen to talk to local authorities about any reforms and changes that they want to make, and I'd be very happy to have that discussion with Aberdeenshire.
Okay, and brief supplementary, Alexander Burnett.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Now, SNP cuts have now created an eye-watering £26 million black hole for Aberdeenshire Council, part of what Audit Scotland called a significant increase in the local authority funding gap. And this has impacted on every aspect of local services: schools, libraries, bins, bridges, roads and much more. So across a large rural area, 16,500 streetlights now need to be replaced, which councils simply can't afford. And Huntly is even
looking to question, Mr Burnett,
into community ownership. So will the Cabinet Secretary today promise to fight for a fair settlement for councils, or are they happy to see communities plunged into darkness?
Cabinet Secretary.
But local government is getting a fair settlement of £1 billion of extra funding. Exactly the same figure that Alexander Burnett and his party would cut from the budget. So if we listened to Tories in this place, local government would not be getting any extra money, because there'd be £1 billion less because of unfunded, unaffordable tax cuts. So I really say to Alexander Burnett and any other Tory members that they really cannot come and ask for more money in this place when they want to cut the budget. And let alone from that, they won't support this budget that's going to provide £1 billion of extra support for local government.
Thank you. Question 7, Bill Kidd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it prioritised funding for its mission to tackle child poverty when drafting its budget for 2025-26.
Minister Ivan McKee.
Yes, we absolutely did. The Scottish Budget for 25-26 prioritises action to eradicate child poverty, outlining wide-ranging investment to support the priorities for this national mission I set out in our programme for government. This includes continued investment in measures like our Scottish Child Payment and increased investment to deliver more affordable homes and to expand the provision of free school meals to an additional 25,000 pupils. Importantly, we have also committed £3 million in 25-26 to develop the systems required to mitigate the two-child limit, with the Child Poverty Action Group estimating that scrapping this could lift around 15,000 children out of poverty in Scotland.
Bill Kidd.
I thank the Minister for that reply, and as he may be aware, Save the Children have urged MSPs to back the Scottish Budget for 25-26, saying so that children can benefit from the positive steps taken, such as mitigating the cruel two-child cap. Does the Cabinet Secretary, or Minister actually, promoted you to agree that opposition members across this chamber should listen to Save the Children and join us in voting through the budget so we can continue in this vital work to eradicate child poverty from Scotland?
Minister.
Yes, I absolutely agree with the member. The Scottish budget for 25-26 is one of delivery and hope and continues to allocate over £3 billion to actions which tackle poverty and the cost of living for households. The Scottish Government will continue to do all we can within our powers, leaving no stone unturned as we seek to eradicate child poverty. But we must recognise that collective action is needed, including across this Parliament. We all have a duty to end child poverty, and I urge members to support this budget to ensure measures are in place to achieve just that.
And very brief supplementary, Brian Witt.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. I think education is a significant battleground in tackling child poverty, and that used to be a priority of this government. The inequality of opportunity in the broader education, such as sport and art and music and drama, just exacerbate this problem. And I should note that since 2011, PE specialists have been cut by 44% in our primary schools. So why have the Scottish Government continually eroded investment into our education system so that these opportunities are not there for all of our pupils that disproportionately affect those in the lowest SIMD areas?
Minister. I think the member will find that we're increasing budget allocation across those portfolios, and I've outlined the money that we are investing, significant amounts of money to tackling that overriding mission of the government to tackle child poverty. And I think the member again should reflect on other calls from the Conservative benches, which would lead to £1 billion cuts across public service provision, and reflect on the lack of credibility and the incoherence emanating from the Conservative benches on these matters.
Thank you. That concludes portfolio questions. There will be a brief pause on this occasion to allow front benches to change.